Albert Breer of the MMQB joins us. Welcome to the show there, Albert.
What's up, guys?
Oh, we're living the dream over here. How about yourself?
Oh, good. I just got back from overseas, so that was good. My adjustment is underway. So I think right now it's technically like 9:30 body clock time for me. So I'm
Where'd you go?
We went to Paris. We took the kids to Paris over Easter weekend, which was great. I suggest anybody does that with their kids. It's I was a little worried because I thought they might be like a little bored by some of it. But I think it's good to expose your kids to those things as much as you can. And we went to London a couple of years ago. I actually went to Europe a lot when I was a kid because I'm first generation on my mom's side. So we were over in Austria quite a bit when I was little. And, it was got off to a little bit of a rough start. I fell down a flight of stairs in a subway station. But after that, it was all downhill from there.
All right. Well, we're glad you're healthy.
All downhill, however you want to put that. Yeah.
It literally was. Yeah, it was all down the stairs from there.
Yeah.
All right, Albert. I know we don't talk a lot of college basketball here, but many Ohio State fans were irate. Dusty May was one of the finalists for the basketball job 2 years ago. He just wins the Natty last night with Michigan. Were you watching that as an Ohio State fan thinking this could have been us?
Yeah, I mean, I was. Now, if we're being honest about it, look, do I think Michigan would trade everything it has for the last 25 years that we had in football? I would say yes. And they can't have that, so that's great. But I mean, we've seen Ohio State perform at a high level in basketball, and I don't think anybody's expectation is that they're going to be the football team. You know what I mean? I don't know anybody who watches. I don't know anybody who I went to school with that watches the basketball team as we watch the football team. The football team loses and it ruins your week. The basketball team loses and you go on with your night. So it's never going to be quite that, I don't think. We're never going to be North Carolina or Duke. I think the expectation is just be competitive. Compete for the Big Ten every few years. Maybe you get to a Final Four once a decade. And if we win a national championship at some point, we'll win a national championship at some point. And I think the frustrating thing for everybody now is that we had two coaches that were wholly capable of doing that back to back, and Jim O'Brien and Thad Matta. And, after I'm not sure, maybe we all didn't realize how good we had it, but, it certainly feels like since, Thad went through the health problems he had and everything else, it hasn't been quite the same. And, again, I just don't think the expectations need to be that, we'll be in the Final Four every other year or whatever. No one's expecting that. But I think most people expect it to be better than it was. And I do think, based on the evidence we have, maybe Dusty May wouldn't have won a championship in year two at Ohio State, but I certainly think there's evidence to show that he would have gotten the program to where O'Brien or Matta had it.
Albert, Myles was not there at the start of the voluntary portion of OTAs this week, and he was not there this morning. And it was Nick and I don't really care about that, if we're being honest, but it is interesting to note Lamar Jackson did show up because he's got a new head coach, new offensive coordinator. Is when you have a new offense or new head coach, and in Myles' case, new defensive coordinator, do you feel like there should have been something more done by Myles' behalf to maybe show up and maybe almost endorse Monken, or does he just not have to?
Yeah, I think it's different with quarterbacks. You know what I mean? I just think with the quarterback, there's a symbolism to it. There's also a functionality to it where, if your quarterback just shows up on day one of OTAs and he didn't go through all the meetings in the month plus prior to that, is there a chance that the quarterback is holding everybody back? Yeah, sure there is. Do I think Myles Garrett's going to be holding anybody back if he takes a week or two off during the portion of the offseason program that's just lifting and meeting? No. So, would it be nice to have him in-house? Of course. You'd love to have everybody you can have in-house, especially your leaders. I'd pay more attention if he doesn't show up at the beginning of OTAs, because for people who don't know, basically the way this goes is you've got steps over the course of the next, few weeks, where the first 2 weeks is phase phase one, which is basically just lifting, running, and meeting. And then after that, like you start to work in where you can go out in the field and you can do stuff, but you can't do team stuff. And then you can do like on-field stuff, but the offense can't be facing a defense. And then, when you get to OTAs, you can actually start to do 11-on-11 work, and I think that's when it really starts to matter. So, at this point, I don't think it's the most important thing in the world that they're there. But, over the course of the next 6 or 7 weeks, it'll become, I think more important to what they're trying to accomplish if the key guys are in-house.
Albert, last week, Andrew Berry says Myles Garrett will be a Cleveland Brown for life. We've had almost a full week to digest those kind of comments there, as has the NFL. So does that mean we should slam the door shut on a Myles Garrett trade the next 2 years?
No, because I just, I've seen too often these things go the other way. Now I don't think Andrew Berry intends to mislead anybody with that comment, but I just think it's like we've seen time and time again where these things can turn on a dime, and so, I don't have any reason to believe that everybody isn't in a good place right now, and that, like the new coaches haven't endeared themselves to Myles, and that Myles is fine giving these guys a shot and everything else. But, look, he's on the back end of the prime of his career. If you just kind of take it as what generally happens with players, you get to 30, that's the back end of your prime. And there's going to be some urgency around that, I'm sure, for him and everybody else. And so this is the stage of a guy's career where things can change quickly, and I wouldn't rule anything out.
All right, Albert, last week you said that April 1st is when you really start to dive into everything with the draft. You already had some intel, obviously, telling us about Ty Simpson and you thinking he's going to go in the second round. What have you learned so far in the past week or so as it relates to the Browns at number 6?
Well, I would just say, I think it's going to be interesting to see the way the offensive linemen come off the board, and I think the way you want to look at this is, I don't think, obviously, there'll be a lineman at 1. I think that's going to be the quarterback, of course. I think it's probably going to be a pass rusher at 2 to the Jets, would be my guess. I'd lean David Bailey right now, but I think Arvell Reese is right there in that mix. And then I think when you start to get to the teams where an offensive lineman might be a consideration, you're talking about the Cardinals at 3, the Giants at 5, and the Browns at 6. So I think in a perfect world, the Browns come away with an offensive lineman at the 6th pick. That said, if for some reason Maui Noah and Fano are gone, you might be really reaching for somebody if you take one there. Would it be the guard from Penn State after you just paid Jenkins and Zion Johnson? Probably not. Would you reach on Freeling from Georgia? I mean, that seems like that'd be pretty rich for him. So, I'd say, if I had to guess which way they go right now, I'd say probably a lineman, an offensive lineman. But again, I look at where, I look at where Arizona is. They could take a pass rusher. They could take a Sonny Styles. I look at where the Titans are. I don't think that's going to be an offensive lineman. My guess would be that's either a Jeremiah Love or someone. If one of the pass rushers falls to them, maybe that, or a receiver. And then the Giants, Sonny Styles, Caleb Downs are one of the linemen. So, I think if they had their druthers, they would go and come away with a really good offensive lineman with the 6th pick. But they don't control what happens in front of them. So it'll be interesting to see the way that the first 5 picks shake out.
Albert, this is a weird year where it seems like the only consensus, I know there's the strong Carnell Tate hive. There's some people that are BPA. There's, a fractured, some people like Freeling. But it's interesting that the number one thing it seems like people can agree on most is a trade down is in the Browns' best interest, but yet there isn't the quarterback to trade, for somebody to trade up for. Are there players that are maybe getting buzz as trade up worthy for teams in the teens or below?
Yeah, I just say that's the issue with this year's class in general is that I just don't think And again, like, this can change, and there can be runs on players on the clock and all that different stuff. You know what I mean? Like, you're sitting there at 6, and like I said, like, somebody gets antsy to go get an offensive lineman, maybe, I guess something like that is possible. But, I just think as it stands right now, without those top-end prototypes, without the Joe Alt left tackle, without the, Clowney or Peppers or Garrett defensive end or the Patrick Surtain, I just don't know what you're going up to get, Now, I think it's more likely if you're going to have trades in the first round is once, you get down towards 10 and 12 and maybe there's a little bit of a cliff at a couple of the positions, then it's like, okay, like maybe there's some movement. But I don't know that 6 would be a spot where you're going to be able to move out. And I'm with you on the idea. Like, I think it would be great for the Browns if they could get value for the pick. I'm just not sure if there's going to be value there for that pick.
Would Tennessee at 4, would they go Jeremiah Love, or is that the type of thing that they're not ready yet with an offensive line that isn't?
No, I think so. I mean, they spent $20 million per on a left tackle last year, Dan Moore. I think it's just okay. And then the right tackle was a top 10 pick, J.C. Latham. So, the problem that they have there, if it was an offensive lineman, is that the top 2 tackles are both right tackles, right? Spencer Fonho and Francis Maui Noah. So you look at that right tackle spot, and do you move J.C. Latham back to left tackle after that didn't work a couple of years ago? Would they go receiver? They took a couple of receivers last year. Maybe, maybe not. I think they would go pass rusher, but do you view Reuben Bain as being worthy of going that high? They might, but if Reese and Bailey are gone, they might not see a pass rusher there worthy of that pick. And I just look at Love and I see who I think is probably the best player, maybe the best player in the draft, if you just take the positional value out of it. Here's the other thing about Love, because I do think to some degree he helps you develop your quarterback. We've seen this before. What Zeke Elliott meant to Dak Prescott, what Todd Gurley meant to Jared Goff, what Saquon Barkley meant to Daniel Jones. We've seen young quarterbacks really benefit from having this sort of back who can do everything. Catch the ball out of the backfield, who can run between the tackles, who can get you in 2nd and 6 and 3rd and 2 more consistently. They can really help you with your young quarterback. So if I'm looking inside the top 10 of teams that would potentially have an interest in Jeremiah Love, the 2 I have circled up top are Tennessee and Washington.
Albert, today we found out Fernando Mendoza will be skipping the NFL draft. Instead, he's going to be hanging out with his family in Miami. I'm always curious at what the reaction is, both around the league and from the league. How much does the NFL league office care that Fernando Mendoza, the presumptive number 1 pick, won't be attending the draft in Pittsburgh?
Well, if you're talking about around the league, other teams don't care where they are. That's, I would say that's way down the list of things they're worried about going into the draft. I think as far as the league office goes, I think they'd love to have what they don't want is the entire top 10 not there. You know what I mean? If it's 1 or 2 guys, I think they're fine. But if you got to a point where it was it looks weird because there's only a couple of them walking up there and shaking the commissioner's hand, that's probably where you would have a little bit more of a problem. I don't think the mix would really bother them that much, though. Look, I almost think of a scenario like this, given how much attention Mendoza's family got, and really cool story with his mom there, his mom being part of the decision to stay home. And then, his dad obviously has been a bit in the spotlight as well. His younger brother is, a pretty prominent college player himself. I look at it this could actually, from a TV perspective, be a better chance to showcase all these people that we got to know in the fall when Indiana was going on.
Albert, I want your thoughts on Troy Aikman's comments, and him saying the Dolphins hired him knowing that he has information that they don't have or can't get, and said that they were really smart in taking advantage of that. We obviously see Tom Brady, and that was a big discussion about his access within some of these broadcasts. Are we just going to get to a spot where if you're Herb Street, you should be lining up to take some money from one of these other NFL teams? Is it if you're a color commentator, you now get a job with with some squad, whether that's the Browns, Colts, whoever, or is this the type of thing the NFL is going to have to step in and say, wait a second, this has gone too far?
Yeah, that's why I love Aikman, because he doesn't give a crap. He said the quiet part out loud, which I saw somebody say that. I don't love all these cliches, but that one works here. He did say the quiet part out loud. Like this is he's privy to information and going and studying these teams, and then visiting them and getting to know the people with these teams, and I know this like. At those production meetings, they say a whole lot more than gets on the air, So there's obviously a lot of information that's shared in those sessions. And I actually think ultimately, guys, here, like the loser winds up becoming the fans. Like this to me is another like one of those the league gets fat, hogs get slaughtered, however you want to say that type scenarios, right? Like because if you think about it, right, if you really break this down and think about it, the reason the league was going to let Brady do that is because the league wants Brady to be part of their broadcast universe, because having Tom Brady on a broadcast elevates the game because he is a international superstar. So, like, Tom had leverage with the league and saying, like, no, I want it, like, you got to let me do this. Like, okay, Tom, whatever you say. And most people said in that scenario, well, it's Tom Brady. He can get away with whatever he wants. This right here becomes the problem, because now it's like, well, wait a minute. If you're going to say no to Tom Brady, why are you saying no to Troy Aikman? And if the Raiders can have that advantage, why can't the Dolphins have that advantage? And if you let Troy Aikman do it, then is Greg Olsen next? Is Tony Romo next? Name the guy, And so, like, these guys basically become, more or less funnels for these teams into the production meetings. So let me ask you guys, what's the logical step to that? If, like, now all of a sudden these guys are both broadcaster and information gatherer for one particular team, what do you think the next thing that happens is?
Jimmy Haslam's going to hire somebody.
Jimmy's going to spend a lot of money, yeah.
Well, no, nobody says anything in the production.
Oh,
right?
That's obvious, yeah, okay.
Wouldn't that be the obvious next step? It's like, well,
yeah.
All right, so now you've got all these guys and why wouldn't you if you were one of these ex-players, right? Like, they're not journalists. They don't have the same sort of, like, code that we all have, right? Like, so they're like, wait a minute, somebody's going to pay me what to do what? That's it? Like, that's all I got to do? Yeah, sure. Where do I sign? So, like, I think ultimately, if you think about it logically, the fan winds up being the loser here because if these guys are going to be less forthcoming in the production meeting, I think it adversely affects the broadcast. And if it adversely affects the broadcast, then that becomes a problem. The thing people fail to, like, think about with the Brady thing is, like, he is fresh off the field. It's only been a couple of years. As these guys, like, go on in their broadcast careers, they have to become they become more and more reliant on their relationships and the production means their ability to get this information. So, like Romo was great when he first got out of the league because he knew everything because he had just been playing for a team. Well, I think now we're seeing like what that looks like a few more years down the line. Like it takes work to keep up with that stuff after you haven't been playing for a few years. And now you've created a barrier to those broadcasters doing that work. That's not good for the fans.
Albert, great stuff, buddy. We're glad you survived France and those damn French stairs. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, thanks, guys.